Quilters everywhere seem to be making potato chip block quilts. It's easy to understand when you see how easy they are to make, but best of all, how much fabric, how much scrap fabric you can use. That's definitely a win-win. Last week I showed you how to make a potato chip block with a larger center square. Perfect for focal fabrics that you don't want to cut up, and it saves you time sewing, making it even easier. That got me thinking about what else can we do with a potato chip block? What can we do with just one potato chip block? I'm Leah Louise from Inspired Quilting by Leah Louise, and I have some ideas to share with you. We'll start small, but then we're going to talk about the other big ideas that we can do too. There's so many opportunities here. I am excited to get started. So get your scraps together, start cutting them into 2.5 by 4.5 inch pieces, make a pile of them, and we're going to do some quilting. You don't need too many for this first one. It's super easy. This is a very simple, quick, easy block to put together. And by starting with this 8.5 inch square in the center, we just have 2 rows of strips that we're going to add. So everything goes together in pairs for the most part. And what I did is I took a lot of my strips and I sewed them together end to end in pairs. So I did all the pairs first. And I generally need about 20 pairs per block, and then I'll need 4 singles to fill in the different spots. So if you do at least half your blocks in pairs, then you're going to save yourself a lot of time. So what I would do then is take one of my pairs and sew it to each end of my center square. And you can lay your colors out first for each block, or you can do it randomly. Just so you can see how it's laid out, I did everything where it's pre-sewn and just ready to add the strips. So we have our center square, and then we have 2 on each end. And what I do is sew along the side, and you see how that seam allowance goes down this way. Then we're going to come around to this side and sew this seam, and we're going to come this direction, and we're going to make sure that seam allowance goes down. By doing this, the seam allowance goes in the same direction throughout the block and the quilt. It makes it a lot easier to sew together. And with these in place, I press this open. While I'm sewing my strips, I usually use my ironing board to stage all my extra fabrics, so I don't always have room to press. So I will finger press as I go and then do the final pressing when the block is finished. So here we are, step 1. Sew a pair on the top and on the bottom, or the sides. It up or down doesn't really matter, as long as you are consistent throughout all your blocks. So with these on, then I'm going to put the 3, and these 3 on each side will be sewn in this direction. The other thing to think about as you're sewing is we do this similar to the log cabin block called the courthouse steps. We do these 2 sides, and then we do these 2 sides. So we come around this way. When I sew this one, I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to sew with my, this way. I'm going to sew with my seam down, and so I'll just finger press that, and then as I sew it, it'll be in place right where I want it, and then I'll do the same here. But remember, I'm sewing down this way, I'm sewing this way, and then I'm sewing this way, so I want to make sure these seams go in that direction. And it just kind of creates a continuous loop or a continuous direction that all the seam allowances are going the same way. And then when you go to add on your next block, what's nice is you're going to sew this one with the seams down, and this one already has the seams down. So you don't have to worry about those bottom seam allowances flipping up and going the wrong direction, as they so often do when you're not looking, right? So that's why I do that. If you have a better way or a preferred method, that's absolutely fine. But this works well and quick for me, and it also helps in the pressing because everything's going the same way, and it's just easier and quicker to press that way. So I'm going to now go ahead and put these 2 on, and then we'll do it step by step. Now the complete first round is on, it's attached, and it's sewn to each of the 4 sides. Here's our 2, which were the first pair on, and then we sewed the 3. And what I want to show you is as you do this, see how these seams all kind of go in the same direction. Now, once that's done, I press these to the outside. Everything goes to the outside. And that means where these seams are all going this way, every once in a while you're going to have one that goes in the opposite direction, but that's okay. I'd rather have that and have all my seams to the outside, which just kind of creates a smoother quilt top if they're all going in the same direction. And so now I'm going to put, I did these 3s, now I'm going to do these 3s, and this is the first step of round 2. So I'm just going to place these on the top this way. This goes that direction. I'll put this here. This goes this direction. And when I finger press, I just run my thumb on the inside of the fabric. I don't do it on the outside because sometimes you can actually, if you drag your thumb too hard, you can create little tiny tucks in there, which I don't want to do. And I just have to decide which way I like this better. I think I kind of like that. And let me do the same here. So this goes this way. So again, I'm just going to finger press and put these on. All right, there we go. I'll be right back. All right, the first 2 rows of the second round are complete. So this has been sewn on and this has been sewn on. What I want to show you is as I'm sewing, these seams come down and these seams come down. That way when I'm sewing, I don't have to worry about these flipping up and going the wrong direction. So that's what I mean when I'm making sure all my seams go in the right direction that I want. Let's see, I think I had this going this way. I'm not sure, but you know, I think I'm going to switch these because I really like that pink kind of to offset that pink. And that's light up there. Oh, those are together. We can't put that too close together. And there we go. I think that'll work because when the others are here, that's not going to be too terribly noticeable. And there we are. Okay, so we have the first round of, or the first rows of round 2, and I put these on, and then the block is finished. That's how easy this is. You recognize this as the basic potato chip block with 2 rounds circling a center square that's 8.5 inches. And remember, these are all 2.5 by 4.5. So I have my 2 rounds, but what I want to do with this is make the supersize hot pad. So I need to add an extra round, but if I do it on both sides, it's going to be too big. It'll be a big square. And what I want is a rectangle. So this is the row I started with. So this is the row I'm going to add the extra. So we have 3, and now I'm going to add 4 here and 4 here. You're going to know that because these already have 4. And so when we start the 3rd row, if we were to do the whole thing, it would be 4 here and 5 on each of the other 2 sides. But we're just going to take it out this far. So let's see what we can do here. I have a pretty bright pink we can put up there. Let's see, I'm not going that way. I have to make sure I'm going the right way here. And, oh, I like this pink a lot. I want this in here. And put that right about there, I think. And here's a hot pink one. That'll be fun. Get a little carried away with pink, aren't I? I got to get some of that turquoise in there. Okay, let's see. I have this turquoise I can put on this side. Well, there's not much over here. Let's put some turquoise there. And we'll put a little flower up at the top. And what do we have down here? Oh, I like this one. We have this in here. It's got more purple. This one's pinkier. Let's see, I've got another one here too. That's got a lot of purple. So let's put this one over here. We'll put the pink to the end, or the purple to the inside. And so I need something purplish in there. And what do I have here? My blocks are getting all mixed up. I had them all nice and laid out. I don't want to use that. Oh, this is kind of fun. That's almost too light though, isn't it? There's not enough contrast. Here's one. This will look nice right there. That's kind of fun. And I think I might like this better that way. I think so. Okay. So I have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and just something purpley down here. And let's see what I have. And these are my hydrangea fabrics, and I just love them. They're so pretty. I have one of these up here, but that's okay. I can put this one down here, and that probably has more purple than any. Okay, so that's just sort of how I go through and do it. Now you see we have a rectangle. So by just adding one extra row to one direction, whether it be sideways or top and bottom, then you're going to get yourself a rectangle. And this will be perfect for a hot pad, especially for a supersized hot pad. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this together. And when I come back, I'll show you how we make a hot pad. All my strips are sewn together. And what I'm going to do now is begin assembling. I'll start with the 2 and then do the first 3s. That's round 1. The round 2 begins with a second set of triples or 3s, and then we do 4. And then the final is going to be 4 on each outside. Now, to make it a complete square, we would put the 4s on the top and bottom, but we want a rectangle. So this is going to work for us. So what I'm going to do is begin sewing with these 2 and then these and work my way around. So let me get that done and show you where we... Now, let's talk a minute about the Insul-Bright. So this is what it looks like. You can buy it pre-cut. I think it's in 1, maybe 2 yard pieces. And it comes pre-packaged. Most of the big box, fabric stores have it. You can buy it online pretty easily, though when I buy it online, I find I usually need to get a 2 yard piece. So it depends on where you go. But this is what it looks like. I'm going to hold it up close. You might be able to see the metallic kind of shimmer in there. And if you look on the edge, there's just this thinnest piece of metallic thread, some whatever metal they use in this. And there's a fuzzy side on both sides. Now, there's no right or wrong, so there's no top or bottom. It doesn't matter how you put this in. But what you need to do is put it on top of your batting and then put another piece on the other side. But first I have to show you. You see how I made this fit? I almost had enough, and then I had another piece that was sort of cut wonky, and that worked perfectly here. So this is one of those I'm making do with what I have. And I will put this to one side. So I sort of have about 1 inch all the way around. And that way it'll be easy for me when I lay my quilt. So this is what we're going to do. We are just going to lay this out this way and put our quilt down. And I'm going to spray baste this. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you how I do that. Give me 1 minute and I'll get set up. So here's my product that I use, the 505. It's by Otif, temporary adhesive for fabric. And I just give it a good shake. And I generally spray the fabric instead of the batting. I think it gets better adhesion. If it's in the batting, it goes into the nooks and crannies where you just want it to glue onto the surface. So if I spray this, it's nice and flat. The batting will adhere to it nicely. And it doesn't take much. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to put my batting on. And I know I have a good inch all the way around. So I am going to put my batting right to that edge. And it looks like it's cut almost to the same size. And I'm going to, now see, I've got a wrinkle, but look at this. All I have to do is lift that up and press it down. And everything is nicely in place. And if you get a little, something not so much as a wrinkle, but sometimes you know how it lifts and it's not laying flat. Just go ahead and rub it out with your fingers. Now, what I want to show you is look at how well this holds. I can pull it off, but it doesn't fall off on its own. That is what makes this so awesome. I love this stuff. And I use it on my big quilts too. I've been known to hang it on a wall and do it, or do it on the floor. But again, I always make sure there's a sheet down. And you want to be careful that you have ventilation. It is an aerosol, and, you know, everybody reacts differently to it. I've never had a problem. And I'm just telling you, check the directions and just do what it says, and you'll be fine. So I'm going to put my batting here, or this is my Insul-Bright. I want to get it kind of squared in if I can. There we go. It looks a little bit wonky. Okay, what I want to do is measure that edge. So see, I can pull this off now and reapply it. So what I realize that I need to do, and I'm going to start from this edge, is lay this right along that edge so it's nice and straight, because this print has directional designs. There's an up and a down, and so I want them to go relatively straight and not be crooked. Okay, there we are. All right, now I'm going to spray this one and put my next piece of batting down right on top. There we go. Everything's lining up nicely. Look at that. Oh. All right, so I'm just going this far. I'm just going to kind of, with my finger, outline how far I need to go. With all my layers secured, I just want to make sure it's nice and smooth and taut. So it's not loose in the middle. There's no wavy areas, because I want to be able to quilt this and get nice smooth edges. And that's also going to make sure that your edges stay straight. If you let it sort of buckle up in the middle, then those edges will come in like this and you'll lose a lot of dimension, and we don't want to do that. I think this is wonderful. This is going to be great fun. As I'm quilting away, I realize I didn't even show you how I marked my quilting lines to do the diamond. And that's kind of important if you've not done it before. The first thing that you need to look at are your lines on your ruler. You're used to the 45 making half square triangles. And then you can also use the 60 and the 30 to make diamonds. Now let me show you how this works. If I use my 30 degree, it's sort of the longer line, and I put that against the edge of my quilt, I'm going to get my diamonds going horizontally. Now, for this pattern that I quilted, I used the 60 degree line. And what I do is I put that line right along the edge of my fabric. And you see here, there's my line. You can actually see some of the purple still in there from my marking pen. But I would lay this right along the edge, just like this. And then I mark one line from side to side. And all I need is one line. And then as I'm sewing with my walking foot using my guide, I set my guide for my distance, which I'll show you that in the quilting video. And so whatever you do, you want to be consistent all the way across. Now, when you want to do the other side, you're going to take this same line that you used and put it on the opposite side of the quilt. Now, you want to make sure you go from this side down here to this side up here. Don't make the mistake of hitting the the side because you are going to get some funky looking parallelograms that will kind of stop everyone in their tracks and think, what is that? And you can just say, oh, I was being creative and trying a new pattern. It worked for me, so maybe it'll work for you too. I've done this a lot. I love it. It's easy. It's quick quilting and it looks fantastic when it's finished. I've already done the quilting in one direction across the entire piece, and I'm going to start in the other direction, which is what I'm going to show you. Now, my ink was already fading, so I sewed the first line in so I'd be able to find my way, and it's sort of like leaving crumbs. Okay, you see I have my walking foot on, and the needle that I'm using is the one that I've been making the last couple quilts with. So once I'm finished using it here, I'm not going to want to use it again on a quilt because going through the metal will dull your needle. And not that there's a lot in there, it's fine threads, but still it is enough to dull that needle. And we want to just make sure that on our next quilt we have a good needle that's not going to potentially tear holes in the fabric. When the needle can't pierce it cleanly, it pushes its way through and it doesn't look as nice. So I've got a 2.5 inch spacing, and from my guide to my needle is 2.5 inches. So as long as I place my needle on my previous row, I'm going to get nice, evenly placed quilting lines. And you can see how easily that walking foot just moves along. I just need to guide myself along that line. I don't even have to watch the needle of my walking foot. I just keep my eye on this line because that's the one that matters, that it be straight, and then everything else will fall in place. And there we go. So, it only took me, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 quilting lines. So I probably have 9 here, which means I'm down to 7. So let me go ahead and do a couple of these, and when I switch around to the other side, I'll check back in with you. I finished everything on this side of my initial line, and now I'm going to come back and sew the rest. So you can see these are the finished diamonds, and don't they just look pretty? I like diamonds on other geometrics because it's a very different shape. These are square, and because this is the 60 and the 30 degrees, it just makes a nice contrast. I really like it. And it's a wonderful pattern to quilt with when you're using a lot of strips as well. It just creates another dimension to the look of the quilt. And just keep going from one end to the other. And there it is, all finished and quilted. And that took a very short time to get done. That's the nice thing about going in both directions. You can stitch in wider spaces, and by coming in opposite directions, you're bisecting those lines so that it actually is quilted closer than it would be if you were just using one straight set of lines. I love it. I think it's beautiful. And now it's time to trim and bind this. Oh my gosh, we are practically finished. Now in order to cut this, actually I'm going to use my larger rotary, my 60 millimeter, because there's 5 layers and that Insul-Bright is a bit on the thick side. And I'm going to go from corner to corner and just come right up about here to there and cut across. Just like that. And now I'll cut this side. And as I'm cutting this, I want these horizontal lines to go right across where I cut. And that way it's going to be nice and square. And I won't have any, what do I want to say, lopsided areas. All right, so that's going to come out just a little bit. And I'll do the same on the other side. Oops, getting pieces of fabric everywhere. All right, so I'm going to line this on a line on my grid, and then I'm going to come here and make sure I line up my lines of the ruler. There we go. Get this square. And there we go. Oops. And the last one. And there it is. I left a little extra there. I'm sure that'll get caught up in the binding. I didn't cut as close as I thought I did. And there it is. I think that is so pretty. Look at how wonderful that diamond quilting looks. And it's so pretty on the back as well. I think it just adds a lot to any quilt. And I had a little bit of wisteria left over that I'm going to use as my binding. So let me get that finished. And then our quilt is all set. I love it. As you can see, I don't quite have enough to get around my hot pad. So luckily I had one strip left. I cut it, actually it was one strip long, this width. I cut it in half and sewed two together at this point, and I'm going to add it here, and then when I turn it over, my plan is this seam in the binding will be on the back and it'll be caught up in the sewing. So if you've ever had to add just a few inches, what I'm going to do here, let's see. So I just want to make sure I've got everything going the way I want it. I want it to go that way. So I'm going to put this here and this here. So let me go ahead and sew this this way. So my binding will be long enough. I'll finish coming around the corner. But I just wanted to show you this. I don't do it very often because sometimes it can be fussy, but this kind of worked out really well. So let me put it on and I'll show you the finished product. Now just look at how tight this is. Oh my goodness. I need to have a 2.5 inch overlap, and I don't even have an extra 1/2 inch left. So what I'm going to do here is put this on the bottom, because that's my nice clean edge, and put this one on top right there, and I'm going to mark this. It's probably the easiest way to do it, and then I'll just cut that off. So that's how much fabric I had left over of the wisteria. Oh my goodness. It was great fun to use. It's a beautiful fabric. If I ever see it again, I think I would probably buy some. It's just so pretty with all these other watercolor fabrics. Okay, so we did it. Now I'm going to finish this. It worked and looks wonderful. I have binding all the way around. There's a little touch and go there, kind of cutting and piecing, and I want to find the area where I did the seam. And where is that? Right here. So you can sort of see right there where it folded over, but then once I got down here and it folded, it did fine. It was hidden. So it was just this spot where the seam was on the binding that sort of overhang. I can live with that, but I am so happy with how this turned out. It's so pretty, and I hope you're excited to make your own. Remember, there's lots of other tutorials with the potato chip block that you can look at, as well as the walking foot, the diamond quilting, the binding, the spray basting, all those things. I'll make sure they're linked. Oh, and be sure you check underneath the video in the description. There's a free download, a tutorial on how to make this. I don't want you to miss that. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for being here. It was such a pleasure to do this with you. I always love sharing this. Thank you so much. You all have a fantastic day.